Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm sure many of you were not aware or did not care to check, but today is Tisha B'Av, the saddest day on the Jewish calendar, our ancient day of mourning. We are fasting today for the many tragedies in Jewish history that occurred on this day, including the destruction of our first and second holy temples in Jerusalem. But let me be clear, Jerusalem will never fall again. Jerusalem, united Jerusalem, will never fall again. No matter how many times our enemies attempt to destroy us, no matter how many times the UN slanders us and distorts reality. We will stay in our homeland and we will prevail. Mr. President, Council members, in the early hours of October 17th, 2023, reports flooded from Hamas Ministry of Health of an Israeli airstrike on Al-Ahli Hospital. You probably remember it. Remember that day. These reports were then very quickly, parroted by UN officials, media outlets, and several governments. Not even 24 hours following these baseless claims, this council convened to discuss what was exposed to be a terrorist propaganda operation. As you probably remember, it was a Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket which fell on the hospital parking lot, not an Israeli missile. Fast forward 10 months, and nothing has changed. In the early hours of August 10th, 2024, the Gaza Ministry of Health, which the OCHA representative referenced while failing to mention it is in fact Hamas, has concocted a new blood libel. Once again, UN officials and media outlets were quick to echo this campaign of lies. I simply cannot comprehend that the United Nations Security Council would hold an emergency session based on jihadist propaganda. Once again, the Council falls for terrorist narratives, amplifying them and neglecting its obligations to the truth. Some in this chamber distort reality because of political interest, and we all understand the political interest. So I will set the record straight for all of you. On Saturday, August 10th, Israel targeted not a school, not an innocent school. We targeted dangerous terrorists operating in a Hamas command and control center within El Taba'in school. As usual, Hamas cynically abuses civilian facilities which should be protected as their terror bases. This strike eliminated at least 31 Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists who carried out attacks from inside this compound. These vile terrorists included platoon commanders, mortar and rocket operatives, cell commanders, and intelligence operatives. We neutralized dozens of vicious terrorists who used this school for their evil goals and were in direct violation of international law. But do you hold Hamas accountable for the losses? No, of course not. And of course he shouldn't speak for Hamas because he doesn't represent them. How convenient. By the way, the building itself is still intact, which would be physically impossible if Hamas claims are to be believed. So I ask you, dear colleagues, did you learn nothing from Hamas's lies about Al-Ahli Hospital or from their lies about Al-Shifa Hospital, which they also used as their headquarters, and the lies about our daring hostage rescue, among many other instances? In which other context would the international community rush to propagate the lies of a terrorist organization attempting to malign a democratic state, as we take every possible measure to minimize collateral damage, while Hamas uses civilians as human shields, deliberately putting them in harm's way? Not only are Hamas lies echoed here, but you also ignore and enable their outrageous violations of international and humanitarian law. Prohibited use of civilian infrastructure by Hamas terrorists are numerous, are widespread. Everyone, I'm telling you, everyone can see them. Everyone except the UN, of course. Yet, the briefer today only touched upon these violations rather than investigating the twisted and immoral strategies of Hamas terrorists. But why would we be surprised if the UN has no data of itself? They have to rely on baby killers and rapers to supply them the data. Just 80 years ago, the Nazi Minister of Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, used the language of race science as his weapon against the Jewish people, poisoning the minds of the German people. Mr. President, Joseph Goebbels' ilk, the people who are ideologically his descendants, are alive and well, sadly. Only now it is Hamas using the language of humanitarian and international law and modern blood libels to vilify Israel. The Council convened today urgently to discuss Hamas's false claims. Shockingly, it seems that you have decided to dedicate your time to listen to the terrorist lies, while no real concern has been shown when Israeli children were murdered only recently by Hezbollah. Let me show you the differences. These, and you have the names and their positions, these are the terrorists eliminated in Gaza on Saturday. This is only part of them because we, as a reliable country, we check ourselves. We don't rush to conclusions. But this is only part of the terrorists who were eliminated on Saturday. Terrorists exploiting Al-Taba'in school as a base for their murderous objectives. These are the people you call an emergency session for. While these are 11 of the 12 Israeli children murdered by the terrorists of Hezbollah. These children were playing a football game in Majd al-Shams when Hezbollah terrorists rained down death upon their sweet heads. So while these terrorists used a school as their terror base, these children will never see their school again. But for them, you couldn't find the time for an urgent session. They do not deserve an urgent session, huh, my Algerian colleague? Shame on you. What a disgrace. So ask yourself, why was the murder of 12 Israeli children in Majd al-Shams insufficient cause for a meeting, but the elimination of Palestinian terrorists operating out of a school is sufficient? But you know what? The most unbelievable thing is your inaction to condemn and stop the biggest danger and threat to the entire region, Iran. Right now, as we speak here now, millions of Israelis are preparing for a direct Iranian attack, just as they did in April. Iran's aggression threatens the entire region with war, a regional war. Yet you are here wasting time on falsehoods spread by the words of terrorists. This fact that we are holding an emergency session because Hamas uses civilians as human shields rather than discussing the real global threat perfectly represents the distorted agenda within the UN, a significant detachment between the UN's supposed agenda and the global reality. Colleagues, as this may be the last time for me to address you as Israel's ambassador, though who knows, perhaps another session will be called because of more terrorist propaganda, I would like to leave you with this. I have been immensely proud to represent my country here. The most moral country in the world. The most moral country in the world. You listen, Palestinian representative, in this warped place. I hope one day you will also see the bias and perversion of morality here. And I pray that you will see the truth. The terrorist organization that this guy represents here and tyrannical regimes should be condemned, not protected, and that Israel should be praised. We are today the vanguard of civilization. We are the vanguard of civilization. But until then, Am Israel Chai. Thank you, Mr. President.